What's up, Doc?
Hey,
Oh, I crack myself up. What's going on with you, sir?
nothing much. Just ready for Christmas break, ready for Capricorn season.
Oh, my mama a Capricorn child. Y'all cannot be.
Beautiful woman, beautiful woman.
She
And just so
is.
that the people know, Capricorn season will go from December 22nd until February 14th, until Valentine's Day.
Mm,
Screw the Aquarius. We don't really care about that like that. So they don't need that much time.
mm. What's up to the people in the chat? Hey, Lock Queen. Hey, by the way, Cool Gamer. What's up? China White. Eb said that she is in the bushes while she is getting her face together. What you doing tonight,
Okay.
Eb? That you gotta get your face together.
Hey, everybody.
So, yeah. So what's going on? I mean, well, I just asked you that. So we are here
hmm
today. We have a few little tidbits to bring everybody going into this good holiday season. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me in education. I said I was gonna do a members only live on my channel and tell everybody what's kind of been going on, but I've had to process it first. So, are you there? Are you frozen? What's
I
going
know
on?
I'm
Oh, you
not frozen. I'm here.
okay? You were moving really still. I wasn't sure. By the way, is a January Capricorn. Oh
Those
Lord,
are the best people on the face of the planet. Jealousy is not a good look on you, ma'am.
I'm not jealous of anything because Cancer season. When it's Cancer season,
People die.
I be
People die during cancer season. Just saying. What?
Let's get into these stories because we're not doing this. That's what we're not gonna do today. I promise you that. All right, you guys, we have a couple of follow-ups to some stories that we brought you guys a few months ago. Um, so we're gonna give you a little bit of the backstory, and then we're gonna get into what the follow-up is. Let's start in Ohio, and then we can work our way over to Virginia, which is on the list, on the list. And I don't know if you guys, if you know or not, but next year we are going to keep a spreadsheet of the states that we mentioned and how many times we mentioned them, so that we can keep up with where these stories. We can start tracking these stories, where they're coming from, and what is going on. We're going to track for 2023, okay? Because we have suspicions, but we need to be tracking so we have our data. This is a data driven check.
Well, we are data driven, but that means that we have to make sure we cast our net wide so that as we begin to disaggregate, we know that the data is not skewed data.
Well, I think we do cast our net wide. When we search, we search. We don't search in specific parts of the country. We search websites that cover the whole country. So I think, I mean, now I guess where the skewed part will come in is which stories we choose to talk about. That might be, but again, if it's the most egregious situations, you see what I'm saying?
hmm
Anyway, we'll.
I think we do a good job, but I don't want anybody looking from the outside to.
Child, ain't nobody worried about that. We know what we do. We know how we do our research and what we don't look for Texas and Florida. Florida and Texas is just always there. I mean, we don't go look like today. We do not have a Florida or a Texas story.
Wow.
Now that might be the first time.
Oh
That might be
man.
the first time we had that situation, y'all. But no, we do not have a Texas or Florida story today. So let's start with the first follow up. So the first, and again, the links are in the description box, and I will drop the link to these channels to these stories as we go through. Now, a couple of these stories are a little tricky because y'all know how sometimes you click on the link and then they want you to subscribe to them and all that stuff.
Mm.
But this
If you
first one,
need me to click, let me know.
okay. Well, this first one is from Yahoo News. So, I can get into Yahoo News. Now, this is an update to a story out of Ohio. If you guys may or may not remember, a few months back, we spoke about the story where was it the governor of Ohio, El Teddy? Or was it a congressman?
Was
No,
doing one.
it was the governor. The
Oh,
governor
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah. The transgender athlete bill.
Yes, the governor of Ohio had proposed a bill that would ban transgender athletes from competing in the area of choice versus birth. All right. So here's the update to that story. This is from December the 15th, and I'm reading from Yahoo News. The latest proposal to give Ohio's governor more power overseeing K through 12 education cleared the state Senate with a ban on transgender student athletes in girls' sports, but hit a roadblock hours later when the legislation fell several votes short of passage in the House early Thursday. Democrats who had objected to the and complained that majority Republicans were rushing the legislation through gave a burst of applause after the vote count was announced around 2:30 a.m. They was working late. The bill is effectively dead, but could be taken up again in the next legislative session. The ban on transgender student athletes, in particular, has been a goal of Republican dominated legislatures nationwide. Currently, 18 states ban transgender students from participating in school sports, according to the nonprofit think tank Movement Advancement Project. Through the late night negotiations, still garnered too much disagreement among GOP lawmakers to get the bill passed this session. There's still a chance for the bill's reintroduction after a new, even more Republican General Assembly is sworn in come January. Currently, the GOP controls 64 seats of the 99-seat General Assembly. The number will increase to 67 next month when Republicans victorious in last month's election are sworn in. Um, and I'm gonna just drop down because it gets into the minutia of it all. The Ohio State Athletic Association has maintained that there's no evidence of a problem posed by transgender girls competing in sports, and the number of such participants is very small. Lawmakers merged the proposal ban with what had been a separate proposal to shift overnight of the state's education department from the state board of education and the superintendent and elects to a director appointed by the governor. It also would transfer many of the state school board powers to the department's new director, resulting in significant changes to decision making about academic standards, model curricula, and school district ratings, among other things. Supporters said the changes would promote more accountability and transparency than the current structure, which they say is bogged down with political infighting among school board members and has been too slow to address issues such as a drop in student achievement during the pandemic. So what you think? What you got to say?
One of the things in this article before we get to the trans issue that was of note to me was I really want them to really, and maybe that's another article, flush out this whole powers that the governor has, because one of the things you read alluded to the rights of a superintendent being given to the governor, whereas it would appear like they were trying to have a one size fits all for the whole state, as opposed to the current model that we see in all over the country, where each municipality, in some areas it's by county, has a school board, and that school board would make decisions for that particular area. In some places it's by the municipality. But my point being, and so I really would like to hear more about that, to see what far-reaching um, power the governor has. Now we know the state boards of education do have, overarching power, but there are still some things that on a granular level is controlled by the school board. Now, that notwithstanding, you ever notice how when these laws go out, or not even just laws, when the conversation is had about trans rights and how people are so offended and how this is so ungodly and how this is so horrific, it always centers around the trans women or trans girls. You don't hear any of this about the trans men or the trans boys. And I say that because if you listen to what the article said, they were only concerned about girls and women's or girls sports. There was no mention or no concern on the other side. And so it points me back to, our, patriarchal, male dominated way of thinking in society that it's like this whole, how dare you say that you don't want to be a man? You know what I'm saying? Or a male, like that, they're diminishing themselves by acknowledging who they are. So that's a whole different thing. But we chronicled at length the online assault on LGBTQ youth here on this channel. This is, I'm glad that it didn't pass. I wonder if by them getting 67, whether they'll have a super majority now, because 67 out of 99, which is what they said they'll have in January, sounds like a super majority, which sounds like more than enough than that is what they would need to pass it. Um, because that'd be 2/3 of that particular body. And so I feel like that would be enough for it to, you know, have passage. So I wonder if it's, even though it didn't pass this time, whether or not we still have issues with it passing in the future.
Right. So I guess I have the unpopular opinion. Um, I personally, if it were fair, if it were both genders, because I agree that people always seem to focus on transgender women and nobody really focuses anything on transgendered men. Um, but I honestly don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem with the fact that it's not balanced and it doesn't address both. But I don't have a problem with saying that transgender women and transgendered men. But I think the idea is that if you if you adhere to the idea of men, natural born men, having an unfair advantage. Now, biologically, I would need to talk to a doctor to break it down for me, but I think that's where that comes from. But I agree that the way it's written, it's one sided, and I think
My
it should be
issue with
balanced.
all of these, especially with these states where it starts from, it's not like there's a problem. They're making legislation for a problem that's not there. When Florida went and decided the Governor Death Sentence was going to pass these laws about transgender kids in sports, there wasn't a single case of it in all of FHSAA. Zero. Same thing in Texas. When Texas went and did this, there was zero cases of this happening. In the article, they read that this is not a problem here
I agree
in
with
the
all of
state.
that. I
So
agree
what
with
I'm saying is, it seems to me it's there are much more teeth in it, and it's much more bigoted and discriminatory to me that you want to say, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I let you know, even though we like I ain't fighting, we not fighting. I'll give you an example, and this may be an extreme example, and I hate giving analogies like this, but this may be the best way I can say it. It would be like if we were still in the days of segregation, right? Right? And not a single, and black people by and large said we don't want to go, we don't want any parts of being in schools with white people. We want to stay where we at. We don't care. We like what we got, and we gonna be over here. We're not gonna be bothered. And then the state came after that and said, well, we just gonna pass this law and say that it's a law that black people can't have schools with white people. And we as black people looking over here like, bruh, we don't want to be over there with y'all. That so what my point is, it looks like
I
there's much
I
more of an
understand all of
effort.
that.
There's much more of an effort for you to display your bigotry for
But
no
I don't
apparent
think
reason.
okay, so and like I said, I know I have probably a very unpopular opinion, but I guess my mindset is it's not a problem right now. I agree. But what happens? 10 years from now? What happens 5 years from now? When our society is becoming much more, we see, especially youth, becoming a lot more comfortable in their identities and stepping into, stepping into who they are and how they identify. So what happens when it does become an issue? So I hear what you're saying and I understand that. And again, I know that my opinion is probably not a popular one, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I mean, I think that's kind of the mindset.
I must say like this: we don't even have the issue on the professional level or on the adult level in sports.
That's not true.
I'm not saying
It's
it's
come
not
up in the
prevalent.
Olympics. It's
You
come up
talking
in the
about
Olympics.
what's her name? Oh, I can't remember this one.
No, I'm not talking about. It's come up in the Olympics. It's been a conversation.
I
Again,
don't.
like I said, I know. Listen, I know
No,
my
no, no.
opinion is
And
not
I'm not
popular,
saying
and we
I
don't have
don't.
to dwell on it.
I don't think that it's a right or wrong. I don't think there's a black and white for this situation. I think it's absolutely a gray area where there's no one size fit all. There's no one cut rule between on how this issue plays out. I definitely think it's a conversation. Hell, I have been amazed at. There's been conversations that's been had, recently, since we're discussing the transgender issue. We just had Brittany Griner that got out of the Russian penal system, right?
Hmm.
And there's been a lot of people having flack because there are images circulating Al Gore's good internet with her playing basketball, but she's playing basketball shirtless. And you know what I'm saying? Like men would do and not have any grief or any problems with that. And so people are making the whole, transgender, thing and everything. And that's my point in bringing that up is this stuff is not black and white. There's no gray area. So I'm not saying that I don't agree with you. I'm not saying I disagree or agree with you. What I'm saying is it becomes a conversation that needs to be had, and what works for one state or even one area may not work for another area. And I think, or even it may even get down to the specific sports. And it may be situations like that. And I don't think that people are ready to have that conversation. They just want to go ahead and just make sweeping decisions without truly having stakeholders in the room and having intelligent conversations about where we go. Because it's not going to
Right.
be, it's not an easy decision. It's not going to happen fast.
Right. And I don't agree with the decision being made out. See, I don't want to, I'm not going to, I'm never going to put myself on the same level as Governor Hot Wheels or, Death Sentence. I mean, not Senator, Governor Hot Wheels or, Governor Death Sentence. So I'm never going to put myself on their level. So their intent is not my intent. Their thought process is not my thought process. You understand what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
that's why I don't necessarily agree with the language that's being used in these bills, but
Because I
I
understand
don't
the
have a problem with
conversation.
with what the bill with the end result.
I understand the conversation where people say, well, most boys, if they decide to become a trans girl, would be physiologically more advanced than the girls in the field, or in that particular sport, so they would have a competitive advantage. I understand that, and that's a conversation that can be, had and talked about. And so that's generally the where the crux of the problem that people have is. I mean, consequently, I mean, you have some anomalies like the Serena Williamses of the world that would beat 90% of the men across the fruited plains in her
Fact,
respect sport,
yeah, fact,
and or even
absolutely,
Brittany Griner,
absolutely,
who we were just talking about, who would beat 90% of the men in basketball. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So there are anomalies,
exactly.
and so all of that goes. I think when people have to, on both sides, people have to come in it not with an axe to grind, but
Mm-hmm.
understand that both sides have something to say about it, and
Right.
this is a gray area. that
Right. And that's why I say
people
my
truly need to
mindset, I
talk
think, is
about.
different. Right. And that's why I agree. And that's why I say I think my mindset is probably different because I'm not coming at it from that angle. You know what I mean? But anyway, so that's the follow up. So the next follow up that we have also deals with transgender youth, ironically. Now, this one I'm 150, 50, 60, 70% against what happened here. So let me get the link for you guys. And this is coming from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post, I have an account, and I know El Teddy, I think, has an account. So you may or may not be able to get into this link if you don't, but you can set up a free account. You don't have to buy a subscription.
Speaking of those people, as you're pulling that up and posting it, that read newspapers, if you are an avid newspaper reader, um, Leonard Pitts is retiring. This is his last week. If you've read opinion columns, Leonard Pitts is a very he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He's a very famed opinion newspaper opinion piece writer. He's black. He's a black man, and he's retiring from the Miami Herald. He's been working since the 70s. He did the first ever article on Denise Williams, which he was coming out way back in the 70s as a solo artist. But he's very famous, very lauded and awarded all over the place in journalism and writing circles everywhere. So shout out to him. Teacher Project 2.0. He is retiring, and he says he's after 40 plus years on the job. He says he's going to focus on writing books now. So
Oh, okay. Well, I definitely look forward to see what comes of that. All right.
mhm.
Congrats, congrats, congrats to him. All right. So this is a story that we did this a while ago, I believe. And it's coming out of Loudoun County, Virginia, I should say, which isn't too far from me. It's about a 45-minute drive, but it's not a ridiculous distance from me. There were two separate cases. There was a situation where and what I found interesting, and LTD, I don't know if you caught it, if you got a chance to read the article. I found it interesting that you had to scroll all the way down because I wasn't even sure it was the same story at first. I found it very interesting that you had to scroll all the way down in this article before you got to them identifying this young man as transgendered or did you notice that in the beginning they were calling him the male student, the male student, the male student, and then
Mhm.
they got towards the end, and then they said transgender issue, and I said this is the same case. So for those people who don't remember, I refresh your memory. There was a situation in the schools where there was a student who they're saying the student identified as transgender. I think that was a conversation me and you had at the time was does the student identify as transgender or is the student just gender neutral and fluid, wears dresses sometimes wears pants? Because I don't think we ever got clarity on that. And I say that for a reason because of the nature of the conversation of what happened. So the student was in a girl's bathroom and was accused of assaulting a student in the bathroom, a female student in the bathroom. The school did not follow proper protocol in how they handled the situation. And
Mhm.
rather than follow proper protocol in how they handled the situation, they just simply transferred the male student, and I say male, I'm not being disrespectful again, just for the purposes of identity because they're youth we don't have names and so that's why I just have to do it that way. The student was transferred to another school where allegedly the same situation happened, and at that time is when the parents found out. Not only did the parents find out what happened at their school, but then the reason why that student was even transferred to the school and what had allegedly happened at the first school. So that's the case that brought us to
I think we talked about the fact that I don't even know that that was even legal for them to even
it
transfer
was
them to
the
a school
way
without even
right. The
letting the
way that
parents
they
know why.
handled it, right. The way that they handled it was absolutely inappropriate. And let me say this for the record, and I think I said this at the time as well, El Teddy. One of my first experiences, it was either my first or second year teaching. Um, there was a student where my school was where there was a little plaza down the street where the kids would hang out. There was a grocery store there, and there was other stores and stuff there, and there was an elevator there that would take them. You could go upstairs, downstairs, or whatever. Allegedly, and I say allegedly because child, but actually, it wasn't allegedly because they had the anyway. A student after school was assaulted by another student on the elevator. There was not a full penetration, but it was definitely an assault. He was trying to, she fought him off. And it happened after school, it happened off of school property. However, as a result of that situation, the girl was transferred to another school, not the boy. And so I'm saying that to say, unfortunately, this isn't a new phenomenon. And this isn't
in Virginia.
No, this is when I worked in DC.
Okay, and I wonder if that's the situation for that area.
Look, I'm bringing that up because I'm talking about just that mindset of, well, we're just going to eliminate the girl rather than deal with the boy and deal with the fact that he did this to this girl. The boy was never punished.
No, and I hear what you're saying. The only thing that I'm saying is, even if they're going to say this is an involuntary transfer, they can't do that without informing the parents of what the parameters around that is.
And what I remember, I'm gonna be honest and say I don't remember who knew what. I'm gonna be fair about that, but I do remember thinking, why is she the one that has to leave her school? She didn't do anything wrong. I just remember thinking that. Anyway, I'm only saying that to say that people haven't been following protocol for a long time as it relates to these issues. And I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm saying that's part of the problem, is that this is, unfortunately, going back to what you said earlier, the misogyny of the society that we live in, right? We're going to punish the girl. She didn't do anything wrong. Anyway, that's just a me story. Let me get back to this article.
Just to play devil's advocate, it might have been a situation where they say, because this may go around the school or it may become fodder for gossip. You know what? I don't want to put my child through that, having to walk the hallways looking like she's the problem when she's really not. Let's just do a clean sweep. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I do remember it wasn't the parent, but again, that's just a me issue. That was let's get back to Virginia because I don't want to confuse y'all. So the article reads, former Loudoun County superintendent, school spokesperson indicted by a Virginia grand jury. So 2 top Loudoun County school officials have been indicted in the continued fallout from a state grand jury investigation into sexual assaults in the school system. One has already lost his job and the other has been placed on administrative leave. Virginia special grand jury charges against former Loudoun County Public School Superintendent Scott Ziegler and spokesman Wade Byard were unsealed Monday. At least some of the indictments appear unrelated to the subject of the grand jury's investigation. How the district handled 2 high-profile sexual assault cases in 2021. Ziegler is facing misdemeanor counts of false publication, using his position to retaliate or threaten to retaliate against an employee, and falsely firing same employee, according to indictments unsealed in Loudoun County. Byard is facing a felony count of perjury. Ziegler lost his job last week shortly after the grand jury released the scathing 91-page report labeling Loudoun County officials incompetent and calling the ex-superintendent a liar. Byard was placed on leave hours after the indictments were published on Monday. Spokesperson for the Attorney General, Virginia Attorney General, declined to offer details about the alleged conduct that led to the charges, since the case is still pending. I want to scroll down a little bit. It's been just a week since the grand jury issued its damning report, condemning Loudoun County schools and other officials for their handling of a pair of sexual assaults committed by a male student in October 2021 at Stonebridge and at Broad Run High Schools. The second assault occurred after the student was transferred to the new high school. The board is set to meet Tuesday to discuss their responses to the report. This happened. Governor Youngkin pushed for this. Glenn Youngkin. We've talked about Glenn Youngkin. He's the one that won the governorship. He's the one that was talking about Beloved being and CRT and all of that. We've talked about him. So this was a situation that he pressed for. He even campaigned that he would do this. This is something that he campaigned on. He often targeted Loudoun County, lambasting the district's handling of the two cases and its policies allowing transgender students to access school activities and facilities matching their gender identities, aka the bathroom child. One of Youngkin's first actions in office was to issue an executive order commissioning the investigation of Loudoun schools that led to the grand jury report and indictments. As for the governor's response to the indictments, Youngkin's spokesperson said, referred to an interview the governor gave to the news outlet WJLA over the weekend. I do believe that part of my job as governor is to make the decisions to shine light on circumstances like this. That's what we were elected to do, and that's exactly what happened. The Loudoun assaults have become embroiled in a national debate over whether transgender students should be allowed to use bathrooms matching their gender identities. Opponents of such policies argue that Loudoun's transgender bathroom rules enabled the May 2021 assault, which took place in a woman's bathroom, but the policy did not go into effect until months after the assault, and there's no evidence that the male assailant is transgender. I'm going to say that one more time. And there is no evidence that the male assailant is transgender. So, and this is a conversation that me and you had when this first happened, El Teddy. We're not, and I said that a few minutes ago, we're not even certain that this student identifies as transgender. He was just in the girl's bathroom. And I do think in the original article, it said that he would wear skirts and he would wear female clothing, but that doesn't make him transgender. It doesn't mean that he identifies as transgender. And I think, again, when I say we, not me and you, but people made that assumption because he was in the bathroom and because sometimes he likes to wear girls' clothes. Anyway, let me finish the article. The report itself, hold on. In his statement to the Post, Ziegler cited some people's claimed connection between the bathroom policy and the assault as proof that the grand jury investigation was politically motivated. The report itself acknowledged the truth that contradicts that finding. The assault occurred during an encounter in which two students, neither of whom identified as transgender, met in a bathroom. Ziegler said in a statement, neither assault had anything to do with schools providing basic accommodation for transgender students. It's difficult to say precisely what events and actions each of the indictments, some of which are short and vague, are referencing. At least one of the indictments looked to be directly related to the school district's handling of the assaults. The indictment against ex-superintendent Ziegler for false publication. The indictment says that Ziegler, on or about June 22nd, did unlawfully, knowingly, and willfully make a false, untrue statement, knowing the same to be false or true, with intent that the same shall be published, broadcast, or otherwise disseminated, a violation of Virginia law. The indictment likely refers to events that took place at June 22nd, at a school board meeting on June 22nd, in which Ziegler was asked by a board member whether Loudoun had any records of sexual assaults taking place in bathrooms. At the time, Ziegler was aware of the first of the two assaults that occurred in the bathroom, but he answered no. The grand jury called Ziegler's statement a lie in its report and said that he thought the board member was asking specifically whether Loudoun County had records of transgender or gender fluid students assaulting other students in bathrooms. The other two indictments refer to other incidents that are not connected to this. Let me scroll. I think we have the gist of it, but this was an update to that story. So this has become a legal matter. And the superintendent has lost his job. The spokesperson for superintendent Loudoun County Schools has lost his job, and both of them are now facing criminal charges. Thoughts?
I'm unpopular in my opinion on all of this. With the restrooms, now really I come from a district where we were very progressive. Like,
yeah.
Before any of the country was even talking about any of this stuff, we were already, and I think how we handled it, especially at the high school I was at, was the right way, because we did have several transgender students, and this is back in like 2015, 2014, 15. Um, we, our transgender students were allowed to use the faculty bathroom, and the rationale was we had a whole school advisory council meeting about it at the school site. And for people in the audience who don't know what the school advisory council is, that is a group of stakeholders. It's a council of stakeholders. It has to include students, teachers, administrators, custodial, secretarial, business owners in the area, parents. So there has to be a representative of all of the stakeholders for that particular school. And so what we decided was, yes, we want to err on the side of protecting the rights of that transgender student, but we can't also negate the rights of all of the other students as well. And we also have to just protect that student, because we knew that there were students who weren't going to be as nice and inviting. So to alleviate us with issues, we said, hey, you just going to use the bathroom, okay? It ain't a whole big deal. If you need to use the bathroom, and we had designated teachers in each hallway where there was a faculty bathroom, where that student knew, you come to that teacher, they will give you the key, you go use the bathroom, you bring the key back, and that is what it is. And they were able to use the faculty bathroom. They had already been identified by the administration. We knew who they were. They had been identified, and we didn't even. And there was a case we did not involve the parents, and the only reason we didn't involve the parents was because there was a situation in the home with the parent and the student and their um how they identified. So I'm saying that to say this: I am of the belief in my brain that a situation like that, to me, is most advantageous to all parties. To all parties, in my opinion, because the crux of these situations is you're still dealing with minors, and that's a lot different than adults. And really, B knows as well as I do, students are brutal. See, the stuff that adults, you know, know they can't say at work and stuff, the students do and say all of these things. They are as vicious and as cruel as you can think. And so you can imagine a student who already has to deal with the awkwardness of going through puberty, where your body's doing change and going through things for a normal student, compound that with you being transgender or gender non-conforming or non-binary or whatever you identify as, that's not, that doesn't fall into that binary spectrum, or your birth, your assigned gender at birth, that can be a bit of a problem. So I always felt like a situation like that was a more advantageous situation for all parties involved. So I've never been on the side of, okay, if this is the gender that you want to identify as, you just go use that bathroom just openly and it's just okay. I've always felt that, there was another situation that need to happen. So, but that's not a popular opinion, especially in the Rainbow Coalition.
I mean, honestly, and again, I remember getting into this debate with somebody who I was friends with at the time. And at the time, I was actually in school getting my master's in educational leadership. So the whole part of that program, or a major part of that program, is learning how to think like a school leader, getting out of being a teacher role and thinking like a school leader. You're training to be a principal. You're going to be running a school or a superintendent, whatever, whatever. And I remember saying that exact same thing to her. Like, listen, I have to think about my entire student body, and what can I do within that realm, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm just gonna be honest. Me personally, just having an open free for all is just not. where I'm comfortable in a school. Now, I don't give a daggone about going to the mall. I don't. Your doctorate is in educational leadership, girl. You need to talk. But I don't have a problem with, I don't care. But from my point of view, T. Jones says, why not put some everyone bathrooms? So and that's kind of what El Teddy was saying. Like, they allowed the students those students
Yeah,
to use
those usually the faculty bathroom would be like a family bathroom or
right,
all
right,
inclusive bathroom because faculty bathrooms aren't male female in all the schools I went to. Faculty bathroom is the faculty bathroom. You go depending no matter what you are because it's a single bathroom. You
right.
know.
And at my school, I'm one of the faculty advisors for the LGBTQ. We call it the Royals Club, but basically, our LGBTQ club. And I remember, what we do is we have to give a list to the nurse, and those students are allowed to use the bathroom in the nurse's suite. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you on the other side of the daggone building, you gotta walk all the way to the other side of the building to the nurse's suite, and God forbid the nurse ain't here that day, But a lot of these older buildings just are not equipped for a lot of. Now, I think the newer buildings that are being built, I think those are the things that'll be taken into consideration. But I know my school been around since the 40s, 50s. We barely got enough teachers' bathrooms without teachers having to walk all the way across the world to get to a bathroom. Um, you're taking a writing break, but I love this information. Thank you so much, Sam J. Thank you, thank you,
Hey
thank you.
Sam J. You
And
know what?
T. Jones, we need to get you up here and come up here on
But just to bring up what T. Jones was saying, this is something that people wrote about and talked about from the wrong perspective. But when you think about some parts of it, as the trans community becomes more prevalent, can come when you have people who may not legitimately be a trans person, but using that as a guise or a cloak to go and do horrible things and atrocity. And then on the other hand, you could have people. There are some trans people who are just bad people. Case in point, remember in the prison after what was that, New Jersey, where there was the trans woman in New Jersey that got like
just, yeah,
2 or 3 women pregnant.
right, right. Yeah, and I
She could
think,
have legitimately been trans and just, doing a bad thing.
yeah, and I'm with you. Like I said, again, I think that as we build newer facilities, I think on every level, those are the conversations that need to be had. But in current facilities, again, I think you have to do the best you can with what you got. But in this situation, this was just a railroaded situation because these.
Hey, Akira C. Davenport.
Hey, curious. She jumped in my chat the other. I meant to tell you that yesterday too. When I talked to you earlier, LTD. Hey girl, hey. As a drag queen, sometimes I feel scared to go to the bathroom because people are always looking at me. I have a friend. Matter of fact, I have on his shirt now. Milan Trejor. He's a friend of mine. He's a drag queen, and he doesn't use the bathroom. He doesn't. He just doesn't go. And I'm like, that. First of all, that just can't be healthy on your body. But I
I mean,
definitely
but you got to think that you got to take off all that padding and everything. Like Ty tells me that. Ty says when he does drag, he said it's not a situation where he feels he's like, listen, I got all this padding, all of it. Baby, I have to go early and try not to drink too much because having to go to the bathroom is a whole situation.
That's
But
what
then
that's what
when
that's
you
what James
compound
said.
that with people looking at you crazy, like you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So it, it's a I've always been a fan of just let the student go to that faculty bathroom, which is a self-serving one stall or not I mean one toilet bathroom. You can
Right.
go in there, do whatever you need to do, and you come on out, and you know what I'm
And
saying.
I'm noticing that the family bathrooms are becoming a lot more popular. The more and more, newer structures and stuff that family one stall, pretty much anybody go in, are becoming a lot more popular. T. Joe says we wrestle with the same issues in higher education. Many students come to us at 17. We also have to deal with disclosure issues. Yeah, because T. Jones is on the collegiate level. And
Mm.
you know, I just think that the more and more the conversation comes up, I have a story. One time, an Uber driver declined me just because I'm a driver. Ain't that some shiggity?
Child.
That is some shiggity. I'll be, you know, that's a whole nother conversation, child. But anyway, child, these, I can't. Anyway, I could go down a whole nother road, but I ain't even gonna go there. I ain't even gonna go there. But yeah, and so I think that most of us, because Lord knows I can't speak for everybody, I think most of us are becoming a lot more progressive in understanding that. But like you said, when you're dealing with youth, there are different elements. It's not about prejudice. It's not about homophobia or transphobia. There are some concerns when you're dealing with youth. You
Mhm.
know, so
I think that one thing that people didn't know they were going to be helping future times was, if you remember, the family bathrooms became popular because you would have a dad having to take his daughter to the bathroom, and you don't want your daughter going into certain men's bathroom, because depending on how a men's bathroom is made, ain't no dividers between that stall. Everything is hanging. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want your daughter necessarily having to walk in there, or a man may not feel comfortable with a little girl, you know. And so you started to see family bathrooms that had the changing stations, you know, where, you know, it was just one toilet or stall. But and then as we started to get more of our trans community prevalent, that bathroom became a bathroom of choice, because they didn't have to, you know, be
right.
subjected to stares or whatever discriminatory actions of the people
Listen, the
that
first time I
that
walked into a unisex bathroom, that's when I was in Italy, and I thought I had made a mistake and went in the wrong bathroom, and I realized that it was a unisex bathroom, and the men was standing at the urinal laughing at me because I guess my reaction, I was like, oh my god, like I'm sorry, and they were like, you good, you know, they were like whatever, and then when I realized I was actually in the right bathroom because I left out thinking, oh my goodness, I went left instead of right. And I asked for, where's the ladies' bathroom? And she pointed, and I was like, oh, so I was in the right place. A restaurant here, Busboys and Poets, one of my favorite restaurants here in DC.
I've been there
Um,
before.
yeah, they have all of their at all of their locations are unisex. There's a common sink area, but all of the stalls are
Mhm.
single stalls and they're all unisex. And I'm starting to see that. I went to a restaurant when we were in Vegas that was set up like
Child,
that. It was a unisex bathroom. The sink area was a common area, but the stalls were all unisex and
no,
all.
really, be what's so funny is, and you probably experienced this, the first time a straight person goes to the gay club, right? And you notice that in the women's bathroom is nothing but men in the women's bathroom. You be
Um,
like, and you go to the men's bathroom and it's damn near empty. Oh, well, if it ain't empty, they end up getting down. But, but it's so funny that every time I take, you know, a straight person to the gay club for the first time, and it's a woman and they try to go to the bathroom, I say, baby, that's not the women's bathroom. Baby.
oh yeah, I've been to the gay club, and you're right. You liable to run into any.
That
Listen,
first, but you know, that
listen.
first time you go in there, you be like, I tried to go to the bathroom. And
The back. Listen, the gay club and the strip club. You liable.
yeah.
So I heard. Okay, moving right along. There was a store one time. It was me, Silky, and another one of my friends, Miss Toto. And Silky had to use the bathroom, and a man standing at the door said she couldn't because she was in drag. Did
Yeah, you
Silky
know
just
these
like
people.
shove him out the way? Because I feel like Silky could have probably blew on him and he would have failed. That's how I feel.
Silky looked like she'd throw hands in a minute at it.
Okay, and would win. I saw Silky when we were in Vegas. I was so excited to see Silky when we were
Oh,
in Vegas.
okay.
She wanted my shirt. And listen, let me tell you something. If I had another shirt, which I say she wanted my shirt, she complimented my shirt. And if I had another shirt in my bag, I'd have took it off and gave it to her because I was so like, oh, you like my shirt? You can have it. I sure would have gave it to her. Anyway, moving on. We have one last story because we almost at an hour. We can blah, 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 blah. Jesus. All right, this one is dealing with charter schools. Now, listen, if y'all not new here, y'all know how I feel about charter schools, but we're gonna go on and read through the
This is
stories,
a
child.
scary story. This is a scary story.
It's a very scary story. So let me read through the story and then we will discuss it. T. Jones, I would love your input on this. All right. Um, This is coming out of the K through 12 dive. This is dated December 12th. Oklahoma Attorney General greenlights religious charter schools. This is dangerous, people. An opinion following religious charter schools to be established in Oklahoma, issued by State Attorney General John O'Connor, is one of the first to reveal what the road forward for such measures may look like, since the U.S. Supreme Court in June left open the possibility. See, a lot of people keep paying attention to Roe v. Wade, which is damaging, but y'all got to pay attention to what else this Supreme Court is doing. Anyway, the opinion was issued after the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City announced its intent to launch a virtual archdiocesan charter school in a letter to the Oklahoma statewide virtual charter school board. The more complex question here is whether a religiously affiliated applicant must be allowed to establish and operate a charter school in conformance with the applicant's sectarian or religious traditions. To that question, he answered yes. Oklahoma law currently prohibits a charter school, often funded with public dollars, from affiliating with non-public sectarian schools or religious institutions, and requires charters to have non-sectarian operations, including programs, admission policies, and employment practices. The employment part is important. Moving on. However, O'Connor wrote that these requirements constitute religious discrimination, and if enforced, would be unconstitutional due to recent Supreme Court decisions. The state cannot enlist private organizations to promote a diversity of educational choices, and then decide that any and every kind of religion is the wrong kind of diversity. This is not how the First Amendment works. The fallout begins. The opinion follows in the footsteps of the Supreme Court landmark case Carson v. Mankin and Espinoza v. Montana Department of Revenue, which allowed private institutions to have access to public funding regardless of their religious status or use. It was not unexpected for education and law experts following the issue. I wasn't surprised many of us saw this coming, said Preston Green, professor of educational leadership and law at the University of Connecticut. You could see how the court was gradually setting this possibility up. Yeah, you absolutely could. Together, the Carson and Espinoza cases left the door open for public funding of religious charter schools, including those with religious instruction. In June, when the Carson decision was announced, 45 states and the District of Columbia had charter school authorizing laws that could be impacted. Impact on, I'm gonna read this about how it may impact faith-based school operations. O'Connor warns in his opinion that while prohibiting religious charter schools is unconstitutional, that does not mean that they can necessarily operate however they want. When it comes to programs, admission policies, employment practice, and other operations, religious, LGBTQ, and racial discrimination in religious schools have all concerned public education advocates. O'Connell said the religious charter schools should be as equally free and open to all students as traditional public schools, but they won't be. However, the opinion stops short of detailing what this means in practice. Can Oklahoma charter school laws continue to require the teaching of a public school curriculum? Can it stop teaching things that condemn religious beliefs that are contrary to that church's teachings, or that are racist, homophobic, or otherwise in conflict with state standards? That paragraph needs to be highlighted. I'm going to read it one more time because I think that's what's really, really important here. Can Oklahoma charter school laws continue to require the teaching of a public school curriculum? Can it stop teachings that condemn religious beliefs that are contrary to that church's teachings, or that are racist, homophobic, or otherwise in conflict with state standards? I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there because the last section talks about what's next for publicly funded religious schools. Do you want me to read that, or?
At this point,
I think we got it. We got it. Okay.
Here's the deal. Let me take this from two perspectives. Technically, We have states already aligning public schools with this anyway. See Texas, see Florida, because with Texas all but removing evolution from curriculum in Texas, where creationism is in textbooks. I'm not making this up. In Texas and Florida, where you can't now mention anything that talks about race.
Alabama,
So
yeah.
if it ain't white, it ain't right. That's all they're teaching now in these same states where they've removed all books dealing with race, dealing with LGBTQ issues, and there it is now illegal in Texas for you to provide resources to youth that are LGBTQ. How is that different from what a one of these institutions that is religious in nature would be doing? The only difference would be is they would now have credence to say we're not going to allow your students, because yeah, they're going to say, oh, that wouldn't mean that they can't allow that student in. We have a case in this before the Supreme Court right now with the lady. I can't remember the name of the case right now, but the lady didn't want to make the stuff for the wants to be able to not make the website for that people because they were gay. And the Supreme Court is getting ready to rule in her favor. You know they are, meaning that
Well, I mean, the cake. Remember the wedding cake? They ruled in favor
the
of the
wedding cake they
bakery.
ruled in favor of that too. But
Yeah.
this particular case
But to be
is
fair,
trying to
let me
go
be.
further.
But to be well, no, no, never mind. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And so my thing is, you are giving public funds, meaning all of these people who you're trying to discriminate against would be pouring into this one pot. Black people, because racism is in there, LGBTQ people would all be putting money into the coffers of this institution, only for that institution to ceremoniously say, we don't like you. We ain't in agreement with none of y'all. We don't think y'all should even be here. We just want y'all money. I mean, essentially, that's what we got going on in states around the
So,
country already.
so I don't disagree with anything you just said, but I'm gonna come at it from a different angle. I went to Catholic school my whole life, K through 12. I went to Catholic school my whole life, and even for undergrad, I went to hell. I went to religious schools my whole life because even undergrad, I went to a Methodist church, and then my master's degrees I got them from a Catholic. So I've been in religious schools my whole life. Here's the perspective that I'm looking at it from.
Hmm.
Depending on the religion, right? I'm
Hmm.
gonna just speak from I just speak from a Catholic school religion because that's where I went. I went to Catholic school my whole life. Whether you were Catholic or not, you had to take religion class. And the religion that they taught was Catholicism. And the teachers, whether they were Catholic or not, they had to adhere to the tenets of Catholicism. So when we think about teaching about um, reproduction, when we talk about teaching about homosexuality, when we talk about teaching about, I mean, even if you, like you said, you want to talk about history, um, it's very much the curriculum is very much controlled by the tenets of Catholicism. So you take that same mindset and you apply it to a religion
Think
that,
about some of these evangelical
yeah, that's what I
churches
was trying to
around
think of.
here.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a good example, but just the evangelical church, and you look at go back to the days of the 500 Club. Imagine that school, right? Imagine a Pat. What was his name? Pat. What's the man name?
Um,
I can't think of his
I
name.
can't think
Jim
of that, but
Baker.
yeah,
But I mean, and again, what me and El Teddy always say to y'all, and I know the people in the
400 Club.
chat,
That's what it was. The
the
400 Club.
400 Club, okay. And I know the people in the chat, y'all understand because y'all are more like minded, but we're not being extreme and ringing the alarm. This is the
Pat
reality that Pat
Robertson.
Robinson.
Pat
Thank you. He will
Robertson.
always be in the bushes.
Yeah,
He'll drop down with the ants and go right back to the bushes.
Robertson. Yeah, not Robinson, but Robertson. I remember Pat
Robertson.
Robertson. Yeah,
But if you
Robertson.
think about that and you say, so now my child, I have put my child, because we know, going back to the idea of charter schools, it's that mindset that the charter school is better. So I have put my child in this charter school, and this whole conversation we had, the whole first half of this show, is irrelevant, because there is no LGBTQ anything. They're not acknowledging gay, they're not acknowledging lesbian, they're not acknowledging transgender, they're not acknowledging binary, right? They're not acknowledging, hell, they might not be acknowledging black. Look at the Mormon. They're not acknowledging black folk. And right now, the advantage is you have to make a conscious decision and pay money in a private school. Whereas a charter school, as a parent, you're like, oh, well, it's just run by the Catholic Church. You might not understanding the indoctrination that's happening. Mm-hmm. And from a teacher's perspective, now I have to adhere to those tenets as well. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, they sure not. Oh yeah, Akira, you know they ain't, because you know they ain't talking about the drag queens. Because one thing, my friend James, who is a drag queen, always says, drag queens are at the bottom of the totem pole. When you start looking at LGBTQ, drag queens are at the bottom of the totem pole. They always ask y'all to show up to raise money and to entertain, but nobody ever wants to advocate for the issues as it relates to drag queens. I mean, you know, but this is scary, that road. And like T. Jones said, listen, we're going back to the Bill Connor, George Wallace days, right?
I wonder if they'll be so understanding for a Muslim mosque that wants to open a charter school.
Oh no, that'll be a whole nother conversation.
That's what we were supposed to do. I forgot. I knew it was a story we should be supposed to do. The lady in Florida that interrupted the kids that were the Muslim kids that were praying. Yes. Oh, I had a drag for her too. Oh, we were.
Well, we said that we are going to be more diligent, and so we'll be back. We'll be right back next week. We're gonna put her on the list. We're gonna put her on the list.
Knew I need that again, today.
Again, I remember. But you know what? I remember when I worked for the union, when I worked for the teachers union, I remember there was a teacher that had filed a grievance. She was Muslim, and she had filed a grievance against her principal because her principal would not give her the time allotted that she needed to do her daily prayers. And it was only the one prayer, because her morning prayer, her afternoon prayer, she had adjusted. I forget all the specifics, but I remember it was that midday, and her principal would not, he did everything in his power to make it absolutely difficult for her to do her prayers. I mean, and I remember it was a grievance, and we had to take it all the way to arbitration because the principal was like, she could do it on her lunch hour. She could just do it during her lunch. But you know, like I know, and she was in an elementary school. So what happened on the days that she had lunch duty, recess duty? You know, she had to cover a class. You know what it's, I never taught on the elementary school level, but I know they don't get their lunch like we get our lunch in high school, you know. Because you know me, I lock my door and keep it moving.
Baby, don't bother me. Do not come to me through no life. Baby, I have that before you.
Right. T. Jones said, absolutely not. They don't consider it a religion. They consider it indoctrination. Absolutely. Let somebody say they want to open up a mosque school, child, with public dollars, with federal funding.
With federal funding or state funding.
That's a quick way to get this overthrown. let the Iman file the paperwork to open up a Muslim school in every state. I bet you they'll find a way to overthrow this one real quick.
Real quick.
T. Jones says, I'm gonna round this up, you guys. I'm gonna read the rest of the comments, and then we're gonna round this up. Y'all know we try to keep everybody to an hour. Now, El Teddy, you get ready to go live on your channel and do a politics or do a run your mouth? What you gonna do?
I might do. Check for me around 6:30.
All right, check El Teddy out around 6:30, and at 8:00 tentatively. At 8:00, Pam Esquire is
y'all be around at 8:00. Y'all know Pam is good, baby.
Yeah. Pam said that she would come on to my main channel and speak to us about what happened today in court, down to the Meg Thee Stallion, Tory Lanez debacle, because it's just turning into a whole debacle down there, child. But let me read these last comments, you guys. T. Jones says, who my baby kiss and love? Hold on, it was one before this because you were talking about your 11-year-old. My daughter came out at 11. My husband's family has made comments before Once she came out, I triple dog dared them to say a word. I know that's right. Who my baby kisses and loves is nobody's damn business but hers. Be good to my kid, and I don't need to. Okay. I don't need to mess you up straight or gay. Everyone can get these hands. Ooh, do we have another Abby in the chat? The spirit of Abby is in the chat. Akira says, my parents made me go to religious school, and I know how it was firsthand, especially being a drag queen. Right. And Akira, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for you, but I understand the drag queen part of it, but also even just dealing in your sexuality, right? Was it an issue even with dealing in your sexuality being at a religious school? Sylvia said, I'll see you and Pam at 8, child. Yeah.
See me at 6:32, so Sylvia. I ain't seen you in a minute, girl.
I know. I hadn't seen. She said she been working, honey. She been working.
Yeah.
I'm want to see if Carrie is going to answer, but we can get rounded up. Thank you guys for being here. Like we always say, tell a friend to tell a friend. We are that it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. I'm taking full responsibility. I said it's me.
I didn't say anything.
But you're looking at me crazy. You're looking at me crazy. Yes, it was. That's the reason why I went to religious school, because my parents were trying to get the gay out of me. Child. Well, Akira, everybody, thank y'all for being here, and everybody who participated in the chat. I appreciate you all. We are going into 2023. We are being more consistent over here because we get great feedback, you guys. And so y'all will see us over here. Don't be side-eyeing me, Elton.
Hey, no. What I'll say is, people always talk about being really be not get along. This is where you come, where you see being really be. We actually do love each other. Love.
We love each other. Mm-hmm. Oh, the comments I got in my chat about the panel on Monday, baby, they was loving it. They was loving us on Monday. What is Teddy's channel so I can go follow him? L Teddy 27. What's the link? Hold on. Can you drop the link real quick or?
To my channel, just look for L Teddy 27 official. I think it's youtube.com/L Teddy 27 official.
Yes, L Teddy 27 official. Oh, this conversation needs to be heard. It does. It absolutely does. All right, you guys. We're gonna be out of here. I don't know what L Teddy's gonna be talking about, but y'all know he's
gonna be I'm gonna do a run your mouth. I ain't even looked up nothing, so it's gonna get real.
Y'all know he's gonna be dragging somebody. Speaking of drag, I need to get up to New York so I can see my baby Ty, Miss Shanita Dixon, honey.
I might call Ty. If Ty not working, I'm gonna see if he gonna come on. He might be in half drag.
You know, he always in the middle of doing so. Either he doing his makeup, playing in some makeup, or sewing a dress, or making a costume, child.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We out. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
Love y'all.
Love y'all. Love on y'all.